Spider-Man 4 Brand New Day was a decent time. I was not expecting to enjoy it, but I was pleasantly surprised with this movie. That being said, there is still a litany of narrative problems in this movie that I'll be touching on later. But to start off with the few positives I had, I did like the action. For the most part, it was engaging, and I did enjoy how some of the sequences were shot. I'm not really a Spider-Man guy, and Tom Spidey has never really resonated with me or won me over. However, in this movie, I really did like how much the citizens revered him and respected him throughout the movie. A heartwarming touch of heroicism. I also think some of the sequences and Easter egg nods to the comics were cool. The imagery was nice to see. I do like the suit design, and the color grading and palette of this movie was broadly pleasing to the eye. Performance-wise, Tom did well with the emotional aspects of his character in this movie, even though I don't like the direction this character is going. Bernthal was serviceable, even as this softened version of the Punisher. Again, very displeasing what they've done with this character. PTSD is a joke now. And with Zendaya, I actually liked her performance in this film. She did well with the emotional moments, and I was quite impressed with her scenes as the possessed MJ, and then also the regular MJ. Now, I don't like at all what they're doing with this version of Jean Grey, but I guess Sadie Sink's performance for this kind of sadistic, telepathic, and psychopathic villain was okay. More on her later. The pacing of the movie, though, is not good. You do feel the 2-hour and 24-minute runtime. Several of the scenes used for character development dragged quite a bit. It's a movie that feels like it has a prologue to catch the audience up on what's been going on and what's happened. It also has a fairly efficient first act, a meandering second act, a third act that's a bit clunky and drawn out, and then a few more scenes at the end that are kind of like an epilogue. There's a lot stuffed into this movie that could have been trimmed up or completely cut out, especially with the typical Marvel humor of undercutting serious moments with jokes. There are plenty of those in this film, and none of them worked for me. Really wish they would just let the earnest and serious moments breathe a bit. Now, I haven't kept up with the Daredevil and Punisher series at all since Disney's acquired them. From what I understand, both have contextual implications for this story. Even Thunderbolts has a loose tie-in. But as is common in the MCU as of late, there is hardly any connection in the cinematic universe. Audiences aren't rewarded for their investment and knowledge of previous events in the movies and shows. The world building is disconnected and broken. The whole MCU is a convoluted mess of plot holes and unaddressed lingering plot threads. And this movie only further perpetuates that. I do have a favorite moment of the movie though, and that was Spidey Tom's battle with the possessed Scorpion. The part where he flings Scorpion into a cop car was the only time I had a reaction to the movie. I liked the brutality and action of it. It made some diegetic sense in that Spidey Tom was being overtaken by the arachnid DNA power-up transformation thing. But the durability aspect of this movie is all over the place. And that's a good place to start with the problems I had with this film. In thinking about that fight, Scorpion should not be alive. Dude takes a cop car to the face and somehow survives? Also, in the flashback montage in the beginning prologue part of the movie, he has a kill shot on Spidey Tom, but for plot convenience, doesn't have his pincer dagger activated to headshot him. Instead, he goes for a punch with his scorpion tail. Additionally, Spidey Tom should not be able to resist physical combat blows with the Hulk. He's vulnerable to bullets and blades and is somehow able to withstand Savage Hulk's punches? That did not make sense. Also, why doesn't Banner alert anybody when Spidey Tom solicits his advice for a DNA manipulating, superpower stopping device? There are some serious world-altering decisions and actions that occur in this movie that are simply glossed over. Even the introduction of the EV-AI was also a disheartening part of the movie, and it's not consistent at all with this technology. It's so powerful and arguably surpasses Tony Stark's tech. On one hand, it's able to covertly and unethically monitor and track activity across all of New York. It's able to conduct facial recognition that's equal to, and maybe even surpasses military grade. And then is basically unstoppable at hacking, and can do so instantaneously. Evie is also able to analyze and assess Spidey Tom's superhuman hybrid DNA, to a degree where it seemingly fully understands it. And his tech can also 3D print his suit and weaponry, but then somehow doesn't alert Tom when Jean has infiltrated his apartment, and for some reason isn't able to uncover the damage control organization's malfeasance once they've been indirectly and directly implicated in the plot. The movie really likes to pick and choose how capable, involved, and active it wants the EV AI technology to be, purely when it's convenient for the plot. Outside of how it's inconsistently used in this story, I really didn't like that Spidey Tom even had this level of tech. No idea how he's been able to afford it, or how he's been able to live in a world where the Peter Parker identity has been erased. Does the movie address that? No. Speaking on Spidey Tom, this movie is ultimately a regression of his character, and rehashing of moments and experiences that he's already gone through. We're retreading the same ground of No Way Home. And this installment really undermines the sacrifice and decisions he made in that film. I can understand that some of the fandom really like this MJ and Ned, and there's probably contractual agreements to keep Wifey in the film. But this movie was the opportunity to introduce new characters for Spidey Tom to interact with and have him grow. Instead, he creepily stalks his old friends for 4 to 5 years, and just can't get over them. Rather than continue to shoulder the burden of heroism and selflessness, he makes a selfish decision. A really poor and disheartening writing decision for this character. I would have preferred for the MJ and Ned chapter to remain closed, instead of reintroducing them to the story and basically nullifying everything that happened in Spidey Tom 3.
Poor Peter. Too weak to send me home to die.
No. I just want to kill you myself.
Attaboy.
Now, Jean Grey is the biggest problem I have with the movie. She is pure evil, and not the virtuous hero from the comics. I don't even think Dark Phoenix stacks up to how evil this Jean is. The whole movie is broken when it reveals Jean Grey and how her powers supposedly work, even though it's not consistent with that either. She's able to possess people within 33 feet of her, and then within 33 feet of one another, if she elects to bounce her possession off to another being. The onset of the plot shows that she's already possessed the mind and body of a damage control employee. And as the plot develops, it's revealed that her only desire is to find her sister, whom she knows was taken by damage control. So if you already have access to a damage control employee, the old lady janitor, there is no reason she wouldn't have been able to possession bounce her way through guards, analysts, and other employees, all the way up to the big bad guy from Severance. And he's not even the big bad of the movie, because Jean is arguably more evil than he is. Instead of quickly and efficiently accomplishing her goal, Jean elects to go on a rampage of terrorism, destruction, possession, murder, manipulation, and sexual assault. She is unequivocally irredeemable. If Siri were to tell her to take a right to arrive at her destination, Jean would have made 4 left turns instead. Everything she does is completely unnecessary once the plot reveals the covert nature of her telepathic possession powers. And it doesn't help that she flippantly uses people to taunt and torment Spidey Tom. She even possesses a guy who gets run over by a car after she's done with him. She admittedly doesn't value the lives of others. And she just might have the highest body count in the entire MCU.
I like you.
But for some reason doesn't kill Severance's bad guy once she has him right in front of her. The movie attempts to redeem Jean Grey through a sympathetic angle, as it wants to justify her behavior. And it also tries to win you over to her character through the speech Aunt May gives about how she's special beautiful, and loved, even if she didn't have any powers. But this doesn't work, because the movie frames this moment as Peter's memory, so the speech from Aunt May is actually for Peter. And even then, the language used doesn't make sense for that relationship either. Furthermore, the movie tells us that Jean has instantaneous access to all of a person's memories and thoughts as soon as she possesses them. So in all the dozens or hundreds of people she's possessed, there hasn't been one other memory of love and acceptance that would dissuade her from her psychopathic behavior?
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
One more thing about Jean Grey, the whole ending and resolution of the conflict did not make sense. How is Spidey Tom able to survive after taking a lethal bullet to the back and maybe even the heart? He was bleeding out bad. Somehow Jean is able to telepathically sustain him and coagulate his blood long enough for the Punisher to descend from a rooftop, drive through traffic into damage control headquarters that's on an aisle in the river, and then keep him alive long enough to get to the hospital and survive invasive surgery. There is no defense for Jean to be able to get away scot-free after everything she's done. She isn't held accountable at all for her actions and villainy throughout the film.
He's out of line, but he's right.
Spider-Man: Brand New Day is an inherently broken movie. The story and plot points are objectively absurd, and really damage the character work that's been developed in all of the previous Spidey Tom appearances and films. The curious thing though is that I don't have the same disdain and vitriol for this movie as I did with The Odyssey and Netflix's Avatar. Superheroes were a massive part of my childhood, and I have a lot of love for what comic book movies and entertainment were before we got to this recent era of sludge content. I've just really become desensitized and numb to the poor quality of comic book movies lately, so a bad one just doesn't infuriate me anymore, because my expectations are so low. And although I'm not convinced it's gonna get any better, it was partially refreshing to enjoy some aspects about this Spidey film, even though there were major narrative problems with it. And that's the gist for my thoughts on Spider-Man: Brand New Day. A movie I had some subjective enjoyment with, but is ultimately another mess of narrative and character problems that will likely not be addressed in future MCU films. If you made it this far in the video, let me know what you thought about it in the comments down below. Otherwise, I'll catch you next time on The Gist.